Hello, 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 and welcome, and surprise! If any of you remember a couple weeks ago, I was telling you all that we had something new and exciting in the works for you. Well, that was this. This is the Worth Watching podcast. What this is an audio-only, uncut, and untimed thing, which means it's going to go as long as it feels like going every single episode. So it's going to be coming out once a week on Mondays. But this episode is on Thursday because we had no episode of Worth Watching Wednesdays this week because we were preparing for this. So what this essentially consists of is myself and occasional guest hosts just talking about anything movie related that we feel like. Sometimes it'll be reviews, sometimes it'll be reactions to news, things along those lines. And other times it'll just be topics of things that we want to talk about, stuff that's bugging us or things that we find interesting, things we want to share with you. So essentially anything that doesn't exactly fit into a Worth Watching episode or a Worth Watching Wednesdays episode will get covered here. And feel free in the comments to suggest different topics for us to talk about. If we find them interesting, they will be on the show. So for today, it is only me because I do not have a guest host with me this week. And there's a reason for that, because this is simply my reactions to the 86th Academy Award winners. People have been asking me what I thought, and so I figured I would cover that. What better way to start off the Worth Watching podcast than by me rambling about what I thought about the Academy Awards? So here we go. All right, so to start us off, some of these I don't have a huge reaction to, and some of them I have quite a bit of a reaction to. Normally, I like to kind of tear apart everything that the Academy does. Sometimes they really annoy me. But this year, I actually agreed with a lot of their stuff. Some I didn't, so we're going to get into that later. But what I think I'll just do is I've got the Wikipedia page here open for the 86th Academy Awards. I'm just going to essentially page through this, go for every single category, say what the winner was, and say how I feel about it. Some of these, again, really won't take any time at all, and some of these I will spend quite a bit of time on talking about. So here we go. First one we're going to start with is Best Visual Effects, which went to Gravity. Yes, absolutely, Gravity should have definitely taken this, and I'm very glad it did. The other nominees were The Hobbit, Iron Man 3, Lone Ranger, and Star Trek Into Darkness. Really, the only one that should have even come close was The Hobbit, just because Smaug the Dragon looked absolutely phenomenal. But if you look at just an achievement in visual effects as a whole, Gravity took it, and it definitely should have. I think there's no reason that anything else should have taken it. So I agree wholeheartedly with that. Best film editing also went to Gravity. I would also agree with that as well. I think the movie is edited really well. That there's some expertly done long takes in the film. I think it was paced perfectly. I know my co-host Colin would probably disagree with me, but I absolutely loved the pacing of the film, loved the feel of it, loved the style. Other nominees were American Hustle, Captain Phillips, Dallas Buyers Club, and 12 Years a Slave. Now, I really also liked the way Captain Phillips was edited, but again, and I think I liked Captain Phillips a lot more than most people did. I'm kind of sad that it didn't take home more stuff overall, but even regarding that, I'm still saying Gravity definitely should have taken home Best Film Editing, so I'm glad that happened. Best Costume Design went to The Great Gatsby. I figured it was going to be between this, 12 Years a Slave, and American Hustle. I'm kind of surprised that American Hustle didn't take it, just because that was sort of like that was the Golden Globes, baby. Everyone at the Golden Globes was just fawning over American Hustle, so I thought that it was going to take home Best Costume Design. But then again, I think out of the things that I did like about Great Gatsby, costume design was definitely one of those. I just absolutely loved all of the design and things like that in that movie. So I think that Great Gatsby, fine choice for costume design. Best Makeup and Hairstyling went to Dallas Buyers Club. Now, I do have something to say about this, actually. Not so much the one to Dallas Buyers Club, but the fact that the other two nominees in there were Bad Grandpa and The Lone Ranger. How was American Hustle not in there for Best Makeup and Hairstyling? Or The Hobbit, for that matter. If you look at, honestly, the makeup and hair of American Hustle dates that film, like when it's supposed to take place, practically to the day. You can look at any single character and go, oh my gosh, that makeup, that hair feels like it's right out of the time period that the movie's supposed to be. I absolutely was enthralled with that element of the film particularly. And The Hobbit, you have all of the dwarves, you have Beor and people like that, and the orcs and things like that. And so those, I think, should have been nominated. I'm going to get a little controversial here. I feel like they really wanted to give it to Dallas Buyers Club, and so rather than actually fill in the other nominees with the ones that deserved to take it home, they decided to go with Bad Grandpa and The Lone Ranger. Why on earth would you pick two completely non-acclaimed movies and throw them in there as other nominees? Yes, I know it's a voting process with the Academy, But I feel like people were like, well, look, Dallas Buyers Club, it's going to go to that. So we'll just, gosh, I don't want it to go to anything else. So I'll put in my ballot Bad Grandpa, I guess. I mean, granted, sure, Johnny Knoxville's makeup in Bad Grandpa was phenomenal, but if you look at the actual makeup and hairstyling and stuff, I think American Hustle definitely should have been in there, and I think The Hobbit should have also had a good chance of being in there as well. So makeup and hairstyling kind of annoyed me because I felt like it was just a giveaway prize to give to Dallas Buyers Club. Best cinematography, Gravity, yes. The only other one that I could have even seen it going to was Prisoners, because while that movie, in my opinion, had a lot of flaws, cinematography was flawless all the way through. I absolutely loved it. Really built up a sense of tension and dread and just awkward and uncomfortable. Perfect tone for the film. But again, Gravity took it, should have taken it. Good stuff. Good job, Academy. Best production design, Great Gatsby. I'm also kind of surprised here, mainly in the fact that Great Gatsby took home both of the awards that it was nominated for. I really didn't see that happening. But again, I love the production design of Great Gatsby, so I don't have a whole lot to say about it. And I mean, the only other thing that I could have really seen it going to was either American Hustle or 12 Years a Slave. But overall, production design for American Hustle wasn't too noticeable. Again, I would have rather seen like costume design or makeup and hairstyle go for American Hustle. But 12 Years a Slave, I'm kind of surprised that didn't get Best Production Design. Of course, I mean, it is just a period film, so it's recreating something fairly realistically, whereas Great Gatsby is sort of like this heightened reality period film where they're really throwing in a lot of sort of just crazy style and stuff like that in there. So I can see why that definitely got Best Production Design. If there's one thing that Baz Luhrmann's really good at, it's production design. It's the look of the film. It's glitz. It's glitter. It's everything that you'd want out of something as opulent as The Great Gatsby. So I completely understand why they did that. Best sound mixing goes to Gravity. Again, yes, I cannot say this enough. One of the things that I noticed right off the bat while watching Gravity was the sound, or should I say lack thereof. The fact that the only things you could hear were things that the astronauts could hear inside their suits. And the fact that everything you heard, like contacting them and stuff, sounded muffled. It sounded close. It sounded as though it was coming right up inside through the suit, and that's how you were hearing it. And everything was blended perfectly. Best sound mixing, and of course the next category is best sound editing, also went to Gravity. I'm just going to kind of lump these two together and say I'm glad it won both of those. If anything else would have gotten it, I mean, there's nothing else that should have even come close. Now I will say best sound mixing, Lone Survivor was also nominated. As you guys probably know, I loved Lone Survivor. I thought this movie was phenomenal. And again, I complimented the sound design of Lone Survivor. Just the way that every impact you heard sounded so visceral was something absolutely awesome. And I think if Gravity hadn't been in this running, I probably would have gone for Lone Survivor just because I loved the sound mixing, and it really put me in a mindset watching a war movie that I don't normally get just with sound alone. And so that's something that I would have liked to see probably win had Gravity not been in the running. But of course, since Gravity is, I'm really glad that it took it home. Best original song, Let It Go from Frozen. That was the song that when I saw Frozen, stuck in my head for weeks. At this point, everyone's been singing it, and everyone's been making parodies and covers and everything of that, so I'm sick of it at this point. But yes, I think it did deserve to win. Granted, I don't know most of the other songs that got nominated here. You have Happy from Despicable Me 2, the Moon Song from Her, Ordinary Love from Mandela, Alone Yet Not Alone from Alone Yet Not Alone, but that one was revoked. I think they were replaced with something else, but that doesn't seem to be here. Maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, I really liked the song Let It Go when I first heard it, so good for them for picking that one. Best original score, Gravity. This I definitely agree with. I didn't notice the score through most of Gravity, except of course for that purely epic ending track that's at the end of the movie. And I mean that literally. I don't mean like people being like, yeah, that was epic, dude. No, I literally mean epic sounding piece of music. Absolutely brilliant. Solidified that movie as a 10 out of 10 in my mind. I mean, I was, 9.5 out of 10 throughout the whole movie, but that last scene and the way the music flowed with it just shot that up to a 10 in my mind. And I'm really glad that took home Best Original Score. I was a little on the fence with that one. I was afraid that it might not win just because there were some other good nominees in there as well. But I'm really, really glad that I was able to take it home. Best Animated Short Film. I will say I have not seen any of these, so I have literally no opinion on that. Mr. Hublot won. Good for it. Good for the people who made it. I have no idea. I haven't seen any of the animated short films. I'm sorry. Best Live Action Short Film. Also didn't see any of these. So I really, again, can't say anything about that. Only congratulations to the winner. Best Documentary Short Film. I did see The Lady in Number 6. That was really, 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 really good. I loved it. A lot of people have been complaining about like, well, it's just another thing about the Holocaust, etc., etc. Come on, people. That was a moving short film. One of the greatest short documentaries I've ever seen. I really liked it. I thought it was just really, really. I thought it was really, really moving short film, and I really enjoyed it. Best documentary feature. I did not see any of these. I usually keep up fairly well on documentaries. I usually see at least one or two of them a year. This year I did not. So I really, again, can't comment on that. I apologize. Best foreign language film. I did not see The Great Beauty, which won, but I have heard universally really good things about it. So good for that film again. Best animated feature film. Okay, here I can actually say something. Frozen won. Again, I had a couple issues with Frozen when I saw it, but then I saw it again a second time and liked it even more than I did the first time. I think it's definitely a higher quality film than anything I've seen Pixar put out in the last several years. And I really enjoyed it. I think it's right up there with some of Disney's other classic animated films. So it was really refreshing to see, and I thought it did a really interesting take on sort of the classic princess musical film. It did some things really differently that I was excited to see, and I thought it was a really sort of fun shake-up of the genre in that way. Best writing adapted screenplay went to 12 Years a Slave. Now, this one I'm a little bit torn on, because 12 Years a Slave, I thought, had a fairly decent screenplay as well as dialogue went. I thought the dialogue was really good, but I felt the actual pacing of the screenplay was really off. It just felt sort of awkward, and took me out of the film a little bit with the way that the film as a whole was paced. If you want to see more on what specifically I'm talking about, watch our review of 12 Years a Slave. You'll understand what I'm saying there. The other one in this category I thought maybe should have won was Wolf of Wall Street, because I thought that movie had picture-perfect pacing. It was just absolutely beautifully paced all the way through the whole film. But the only reason I can see this not winning adapted screenplay was because even though it had some of the most genius dialogue, I mean, this was Tarantino-level dialogue throughout this whole movie. But the only reason I can see it not winning adapted screenplay was because apparently a lot of the film was improvised. And so who knows how closely they stuck to the screenplay. I haven't actually read the screenplay, so I don't know. But all I can say is from watching the finished film, I thought that, whoever the screenwriter was did a phenomenal job. So I think it's kind of a toss-up between the one. I'm not mad that 12 Years a Slave took it. But again, I did have some issues with its writing. Whereas I thought Wolf of Wall Street, of the things I liked about the film, the writing was definitely one of the strongest points. Best writing original screenplay went to Her. I did not see Her this year. It came out the same weekend as something else. So I didn't get a chance to see it. I've heard really good things about it. I've watched some scenes from it. I've been able to get a hold of a couple scenes and see those, and I thought they were all phenomenally well written. I thought the dialogue that I've read from it was really, really good as well. So I have absolutely no problem with that winning Best Original Screenplay. Best Supporting Actress went to Lupita Nyong'o, I think is how you pronounce her name, for 12 Years a Slave. I thought she was absolutely phenomenal in the movie. She just did a great job, gave it the performance her all. And I'd never heard of her before this movie. And I was blown away by her performance. She brought so much emotion to it. And you just felt for her character from the very moment that she was on screen until the moment she was off screen. She was just brilliant. And she's, when I left the movie theater, I was thinking about her character for like days afterwards. And I remember her character's name was Patsy. I don't remember half the characters' names in that movie. I don't remember Michael Fassbender's character name, but I remember her character name because her performance just left that much of an impression in my mind. So I think that she, if it was other than her, the only other actress I can see who was nominated was Jennifer Lawrence. I mean, not the only other one that was nominated, but the only one that I would consider for Best Supporting Actress. Because Jennifer Lawrence, a lot of people seems to have a bit of an issue with her in American Hustle, which I find really weird because normally I'm the one who's not a big Jennifer Lawrence fan. But I actually loved her performance. I thought she was great as sort of this young person trying to act like an adult, trying to act above sort of her station in life, and trying to just deal with the situation that's probably above her maturity level, which is, what her character was doing. I thought that Jennifer Lawrence fit the role really well and portrayed that perfectly. So I really liked her performance. But again, absolutely nothing wrong with Lupita Nyong'o winning. I thought she gave a stellar performance, and it overall had more gravity in my mind than Jennifer Lawrence's performance. So I definitely agree with that nomination there. Okay, Best Supporting Actor. Here we go, where I get to start ranting a little bit. Went to Jared Leto for Dallas Buyers Club. Now, I was really hoping that Barkhad Abdi would win, because I thought his performance blew me away, and he's a newcomer, and I want to see him in more things. And I was hoping that, if he got a Best Supporting Actor win, it would ensure that he would be in a whole bunch of more movies in the future, and I get to see even more stuff. But now that he's just nominated, I'm afraid he's going to kind of just dip back into oblivion, and we're never going to see him in anything else. But I thought his performance was so good, and made a character really relatable and almost likable at times, who otherwise would have just been, your stereotypical villain. And I thought that he was absolutely great at pulling that role together and just brought such a charisma to the performance of someone who's in just this dire, desperate situation that it was just riveting throughout the whole film. And if he hadn't won, I wanted to see it go to Michael Fassbender for 12 Years a Slave, because he was one evil guy in that movie, and just sold his role so well. I mean, I thought in that movie it was interesting. You have sort of like the good master played by Benedict Cumberbatch and the bad master played by Michael Fassbender, and just the crazy that's in his eyes in that movie is insane. I think he's a phenomenal, tremendous actor, and I would have really liked to have seen Best Supporting Actor go to either him or Barkhad Abdi. And here's why I'm kind of mad about Jared Leto winning this. More so, well, I'll get to this later, but it seems that for years the Academy likes to just dote upon people who do one of two things as their character. Either A, go through a big physical transformation. If you look at people who either gain a lot of weight, lose a lot of weight, do things like that, the Academy will nominate them. What's really funny is if you look at the movie Tropic Thunder, Robert Downey Jr.'s character is a guy who undergoes a physical transformation to get an Oscar role. He tries to make this role Oscar-winning by going this physical transformation, by dyeing his skin to make himself into an African-American character. And that whole movie is a parody. His whole character is a parody of that sort of Oscar-desperate actor who's trying to do a physical transformation to get an Oscar nod. And Robert Downey Jr. got an Oscar nod for Tropical Thunder. Which I think is just insane irony that actually happened. And it was like, wow, so you will nominate people who go through a physical transformation even if it's their character doing it for the sake of making fun of you. And so that's the A thing that I think will always get someone nominated / win for Best Supporting Actor. The other one is to portray someone who's very different. And I mean that if you ever play someone who's mentally challenged, if you play someone who is homosexual or things like that, anything that is not of the, right down the middle of the road American norm, I think that the Academy jumps on that and nominates that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, because again, it takes extra skill to perform a role where it's something that's very different from everyday life, because it's usually so alien for most people to play something that's wildly different that they can't relate to as much like that. But I think it's gotten to the point where the Academy, when they see anyone who is either going through big physical transformations for a role, or playing someone who is, not the standard American Joe, that they're just going to jump on that and nail them into winning whatever actor category it is. And that's something that I've seen repeatedly over the years. And I was hoping that maybe the Academy would prove people wrong this year and go with someone like Barkhad Abdi or Michael Fassbender. But I wasn't surprised at all when Jared Leto won. Again, I'm kind of upset about it because I felt that Barkhad Abdi's performance was just insane, and so was Michael Fassbender's. But in the end, Jared Leto won, so guess the Academy just confirmed what everyone was thinking about them. Best Actress went to Cate Blanchett for Blue Jasmine. I did not see Blue Jasmine. Again, I've heard only positive things about her performance in it, and I wouldn't really have picked anyone else who was nominated. The other nominees were Amy Adams for American Hustle. She was good, but didn't really stand out as much as a lot of the other characters in the movie. Sandra Bullock for Gravity. She was good, but didn't necessarily have to do a lot in her performance. Judi Dench for Philomena. Did not see Philomena. And Meryl Streep for August Osage County. I also did not see August Osage County, but Cate Blanchett apparently did a really good job, so good for her for winning Best Actress. Best Actor, Matthew McConaughey for Dallas Buyers Club. Well, now we have someone who went through a physical transformation and played an AIDS patient, winning Best Actor over Christian Bale. Now I will say something. This was a bit of a surprise because Christian Bale also went through a physical transformation for American Hustle. But what did Matthew McConaughey have over Christian Bale? He's playing an AIDS patient. Anyone who's playing someone with a terminal illness, again, they become someone who's not just your ordinary average Joe. Therefore, the Academy tips in their favor, which is, I think, if Matthew McConaughey hadn't been in the running and it was between Christian Bale, Bruce Dern, Leonardo DiCaprio, and Chiwetel Ejiofor, Christian Bale would have won. Why? Because he went through a physical transformation. His performance was also phenomenal, but I don't think that's why he would have won. And that's something that always has bothered me about the Academy, and something that always continues to bother me, is I wish that their nominations and the winners were a little more objective based on what the category is supposed to actually be about. It's supposed to be about the actual acting performance of the actor, not what they did to get in preparation for the role, and not who their character is. If you want to have a category for best character or most, thought-provoking character, go ahead and do that. But leave the category of best actor for the person who purely their performance was the greatest triumph. And in this case, I think Leonardo DiCaprio actually deserved to win. I thought his performance as Jordan Belfort, he gave it all. He was so crazy, so hyped up, so energetic throughout that movie, and portrayed just the variety of complexities that someone with that sort of just manic personality and a greed and all of that is just going to have. And I absolutely loved his performance. It was one of the things, again, that I really, really liked about the film, The Wolf of Wall Street. So that's just my opinion. Again, I loved Christian Bale's performance, but I still would have been kind of like, if he won, because he put on a lot of weight for the role. And that's not to say that people who go through big physical transformations for a role are doing something wrong. I think it's phenomenal of them to have that dedication to the role, to try to make it that impressive, to try to really fit their character. I think that's wonderful to do. But I think that's something different than Best Actor. And that's something that always annoys me, is that you can, if you want to just secure yourself an Oscar nod, lose 30 pounds or gain 30 pounds, and also give a good performance, because then you'll go over everyone else who gave a good performance, because the Academy will look to you since you went through a physical transformation. I think I said in one of the Worth Watching Wednesdays episodes, physical transformations get Oscar nominations. It should be a bumper sticker, and I still plan on at some point possibly making that, because I think it's true. Best Director went to Alfonso Cuarón for Gravity. Yes, Gravity was a director's film, and what I mean by that is that it was clearly the vision of the director. It was a passion project. Alfonso Cuarón, I think, has been working on it since 2006, I believe, is when Children of Men came out. And yeah, the film was amazing, and again, such a director's vision kind of film. I'm really, really glad that Alfonso Cuarón got it, because if he hadn't, I would have been really, really, really disappointed. And I come off like I'm a Gravity fanboy here. I love the movie, but in no means am I a fanboy. If it had gotten like Best Original Screenplay, I would have thought that was horrible, or things like that. Or again, if Sandra Bullock had won Best Actress for it, I would have kind of questioned that. Or if by some odd way George Clooney had been nominated for Best Actor, I would have thought that was absurd as well. But there are certain things that I think the film really did deserve to win. And again, I think Best Director is one of those. And finally, we get to the big one, Best Picture. We have 12 Years a Slave, won Best Picture. Now again, remember, I absolutely loved the film 12 Years a Slave, but the main issue I had with the film was that it was sort of just the structure of the film. I felt that it was tackling a true story that was so big with so many intimate details in there that at points you ended up feeling lost, and there were times when it felt like it was focusing on things that were trivial and then glossing over things that were far more important to the story, just to provide these little sort of unconnected vignettes that happened towards the middle of the film. And that was something that really bothered me about it. And like I said in my review of the film, I would have loved to have seen it as like a 10-part HBO miniseries. You know, something with the same production quality that you get from a feature-length film, but divided into like a full 10-hour thing. And I think that would have really helped, because in the film, or even like a 5-part, I think I said maybe a 5-part miniseries, because in the film, you have sort of 5 distinct sections to the film. And there are characters in each section who you see prominently through that section, get to know, and then disappear the moment the film moves on and you never see again. And it makes the film feel kind of disjointed at points, and I think it would have fared really well if those could have each been individual hour-long episodes of a miniseries. And at that point, you wouldn't have had to have this weird, well, we really want to focus on this specific instance that happened, but in order to do that, so this movie's not 5 hours long, we're going to have to cut out some other moments from this really important major plot point here so that we can spend 15 minutes focusing on this small little thing that happened because it says something about a certain character. I liked all of those moments in the film, but I wouldn't have liked to have sacrificed the pacing of the film for them. And I think if you had a longer time frame to work with, I think you could put those in there more effectively without having to screw up the pacing of the whole film. So again, my problems with 12 Years a Slave had nothing to do with story, had nothing to do with acting, had nothing especially to do with cinematography, because my gosh, that film had beautiful cinematography. It was just the pacing and some of the editing that I felt could have been served better, in something like a miniseries. And so I'm not mad that it won Best Picture. I was really actually kind of pulling for Captain Phillips to win Best Picture, though, because I feel like the film was really ignored. Just because it came out like the week after Gravity and people were still reeling about that. And so I'll explain really quick why I sort of hoped Captain Phillips would have won Best Picture. Because it would have been such a different Best Picture winner from anything we've seen recently. And I think it was, in my opinion, one of the greatest films of the year. And probably was not as much of a tour de force as Gravity was. Like, it didn't revolutionize things as much as Gravity did. And in that hand, I would have been very, very happy to see Gravity win Best Picture as well. Because it's really, really rare these days that you see like a technical marvel like Gravity sweep Best Picture, even if the film is excellent. I mean, you see Avatar didn't win Best Picture, Inception didn't win Best Picture, and now Gravity didn't win Best Picture either. And I think it's been the last major, like, huge blockbuster film that won Best Picture was, I believe, The Return of the King, and that came out in 2003. So it's been over 10 years since we've had like a major motion picture, like a phenomenon, win Best Picture. And that's something that kind of bothers me, because there used to be, like, if you look at the 90s, things that won Best Pictures then, there was no distinction between a blockbuster film and an Oscar film. You know, now you have the term Oscar bait, which goes to describe something that's clearly just a shoe-in for an Oscar. And that really bothers me, because I don't think there's necessarily a distinction between something being popular and being worthy of being praised as an excellent work of art. Now, of course, I think that a lot of our big blockbuster films these days are of a lower quality than they used to be. I will completely agree with that, but I think that there's still at least one or two of them a year that completely excel, and I think Gravity was one of those. This film blew me away, and it captivated audiences worldwide, to the point where it got re-released in theaters like immediately after it had left. I thought it was just an extraordinary film, and again, such an achievement in film, which is generally what Best Picture is supposed to sort of honor as something that had the greatest impact, whereas I think, again, the Academy tends to lean towards historical dramas for Best Picture. And so 12 Years a Slave is just a shoe-in to win Best Picture. I don't think it has the lasting gravitas that Gravity is going to have. I think Gravity is going to influence anything that's ever takes place in space for years to come. I think now they have a higher bar to live up to. And I think 12 Years a Slave is not going to influence any historical drama film that takes place in the future. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think it has the same lasting impact that Gravity does. And that's why I would have liked to see Gravity win. But back to, again, why I would have wanted to see Captain Phillips win is because when coming out of Captain Phillips, I always try to think of at least one or two gripes that I have with the movie, something that I thought was done poorly. I couldn't think of a single thing that I didn't like about Captain Phillips. There was nothing wrong with that movie, in my opinion. And again, people can complain about it versus the true story and whose fault the whole event was, but that's not what I'm talking about. That's completely irrelevant. I'm talking about the actual film itself as a film. Pretend the true story never even happened and look at it as a film. I mean, look at Argo, for instance. That won Best Picture last year, and the entire last 30 minutes of that film never even happened. So clearly that's completely irrelevant. But as far as Captain Phillips goes, I thought the acting was tremendous all the way through. I thought it was shot perfectly. I thought it kept me on the edge of my seat all the way through the film, even though I knew how it was going to end because I'd heard of the true story. So I knew that everything was going to end up okay, but I was still just clenching my seat the entire time through that movie. And there were times when it dragged on, but they were perfectly timed because it was a hostage negotiation movie, and you needed to have that extra time in there to build the tension and to get you just as frustrated as all of the characters that things weren't working out the way they were. I was very happy with that, and I think it would have been a worse film if they'd cut anything out of there. I thought the movie was a perfect movie, done exactly the way it should be. I thought it had a brilliant soundtrack, and I thought it told the story exactly the way that it should have been told. Brilliant film, in my opinion. I would have loved to see that win Best Picture because I think it would have just come out of nowhere and surprised a lot of people. But it was one I was really rooting for. But unfortunately, the Oscars, again, did what they always do and nominated the historical... They gave the award to the historical drama film over A, the technical masterpiece, or B, the sort of dark horse, more action, true story candidate. And that's really wherein my main disappointment this year lies, was just how predictable the Oscars this year was. I mean, everyone I know, I didn't have an Oscar bracket this year, but everyone I know who did got like all except for 3 or 4 of them right. Because it was so obvious going into it who was going to win for what. There was no real major category that was a legitimate toss-up. I mean, everyone knew 12 Years a Slave was going to win Best Picture because it's a historical drama. Everyone knew Alfonso Cuarón was going to win Best Director because it was a director's movie. Everyone knows Matthew McConaughey was going to win Best Actor because of his physical transformation. Everyone knew that Cate Blanchett was going to win for Blue Jasmine. Either her or Meryl Streep. I suppose this is a bit of a toss-up. But again, there was just these things when you knew going in that certain people were going to win the thing, not because they overwhelmingly by 30 or 40% deserved it over the different nominees, but just because of course the Academy would give it to them. And that's really what bothered me, was just how predictable I found this year's Oscars to be. I think last year was not a great year for movies overall, but at least there were some surprises, some snubs, things like that happening in the Oscars, where this year I just felt like it was really, really vanilla. And I was like, well, here's the thing. I thought this year would be a chance for the Academy to prove that they're not as one note as everyone thought they were. I was like, if Leonardo DiCaprio wins Best Actor and Gravity or Captain Phillips or Wolf of Wall Street wins Best Picture and Barkhad Abdi wins Best Supporting Actor, maybe things will actually get turned on their head and people go, oh, okay, the Academy doesn't always follow the sort of routine that always happens. But rather than having any of those be sort of proven wrong, they just exactly conformed to the stereotype that they're getting further and further hammered into with each Oscar season that happens, where people go, oh, well, of course they're going to do that because of X, Y, and Z reason, unrelated to the actual merit of the performance or film or category or whatever it was. So that is essentially my thoughts on the Oscars this year. Probably fairly divisive. I bet I'm going to get a bit of angry comments down below, but those are, again, my opinions. I'm not saying this is objective. That's just my thought. If you guys had any opinions, if you agree with me, if you disagree, have anything else that you didn't like about the Oscars or things you did like, let me know in the comments down below, and we will see you next week. Again, generally these are going to be coming out on Mondays, and you will be getting Worth Watching Wednesdays. This was just the release week for the Worth Watching podcast, so that is why there was no Worth Watching Wednesday this week. But we will see you this weekend when we review 300 Rise of an Empire. We will see if that movie is any good or if it is the worthless sequel that I fear it may be. All right.